Hello, everybody. I'm back. This time to talk about not long arm, short arm quilting with our Bernina domestic machines. So let me turn it around here so you can see me. All right. Thank you for joining us. This is machine quilting with Bernina domestic machines. And there's a lot to cover, and hopefully there's a lot of you out there that will find at least one of these techniques helpful. There are many feet, many feet that you can use for quilting with a Bernina sewing machine. So we're going to start first with some easy straight line quilting. And that means that we can use one of two things. I want to just point out a couple of feet here. I'm going to grab this little guy. This little guy here, this is the Bernina walking foot. Bernina walking feet are available for pretty much every Bernina, even the Bernina 830s in the red cases. You can certainly use a Bernina walking foot on those. Walking feet are designed to feed multiple layers of fabric, which would be a quilt back, batting, and a quilt top. It also is really helpful when you're trying to match plaid. If you're doing very long seams, it can be helpful. And there's a lot of questions. I've seen a lot of questions posted online about, do I need a walking foot if I have the Bernina dual feed on my new Bernina 570, 770, 798 series machine? And honestly, maybe you probably do. When I'm using my Bernina 770, I actually am using dual feed most of the time. I'm not using super thick batting. However, it's a preference. Obviously, if you're using the Bernina dual feed and you feel like you're not getting enough feed through really thick batting and things like that are happening, then it's probably time to check this little guy out. So the Bernina walking foot actually comes with a few other attachments. Excuse the rattle of all of these tools in here. So there's the open toe foot. So the one that comes on it when you pull it out of the packaging is a closed toe foot. See how it's kind of where the needle goes in, there's some metal in front of that. Then they have the open toe version. Some people prefer to use these for stitch in the ditch, or if you're using a zigzag stitch or something, or just simply trying to sew on top of a line, you can see exactly where the needle's going. There's also this little number. This is a stitch in the ditch foot, or the sole plate with the central guide. This is definitely very helpful for stitch in the ditch. It's very helpful if you are someone that wants to sew your bindings onto your finished quilt. So a lot of people sew the binding to the back of the material, wrap it around to the front, line this little guide up, and then move the needle position to get a perfect top stitch. So the Bernina walking foot comes with all three of these soles. It also comes with this funny tool and left and right seam guides. So if you've not heard, there is this technique called crosshatching. And crosshatching is where you would draw one reference line, then you would put a seam guide on, and then line that seam guide up so that you get evenly spaced diamonds or checkerboard or something like that. So these seam guides will really help. And sometimes you might do a project where you're going to line everything up on the right side, then you change the guide, put it on the left side, then line everything up on the left side. So in order to add the guides, you put on this mystery piece right here. It goes on just like that. And then you put your seam guide through. But I don't know if they told you that they jump out of your lap when you're trying to do things in front of a camera. So let's try again. So I'm going to loosen up our screw. Pro tip, put the hat on the correct way. See how there's a hole back there? That's for the screw. And it follows that line just like that. And then we can put our seam guide on. We can adjust the screw. And we have our cross hatching just the way we like it. And we can line it up 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch away, 2 inches. This is a pretty long seam guide, so we can go out pretty far. So I've got some magic swatches. I'm going to put this walking foot on, and then you can kind of see how this works. So let's switch to the sewing view. There it is. So when you're putting the walking foot on, it can be a little tricky because the idea is that you have this little fork dude, and the little fork dude has to hold on to the needle screw. So the first thing that I do is I put the fork dude over the needle screw. Then there's a little notch, and it's hard to see here, and there's a little notch that you have to slip that cone over. And I'm just going to be very careful with Adam's tripod. Let's see here. I am not sure if that's really helping, but let's see. So the foot goes on, and the cone goes over that little edge there, and then you slip it on and pull your foot into place so that it's secure nicely. Okay. So there it is with our guide. And this guide is actually positioned 1 inch to the left of the center needle position. Now, when you're doing straight line quilting, it's also a good idea to just do a test on some fabric and batting and see what kind of stitch length is working for the batting and the fabric choice that you've made. In my situation, I know that I like a 3 millimeter long stitch length when I do straight line quilting. So I'm going to get started, and now to get started, some people like to bring their bottom thread up to the top. I am also that some people. So I'm using the heel tap feature on my foot control to bring my needle down, bring my needle up, then I'm using my freehand system to retrieve that bobbin thread. Oop, let's try again. There we go. I had little scissors that I brought over. I'm wondering if somebody could hand me a little pair of scissors that's right straight down. No, on the white cutting table. Nope, the white cutting table. They're little tweezers, sorry. Thank you. All right. Yay. Okay, now I'm going to reach in there and get my little thread. Here it comes. All right, we got it. All right, so now I'm just going to make an X from one corner to the other corner on this block. I've elongated my stitch to 3 millimeters long, and I have the default tension setting, which is 5.5. Now I'm going to leave my needle down, lift my presser foot, and pivot, and I'm just going to stitch down a little bit until my left guide lines up with my previous stitching line. I don't know if you can see that here on the video, but I'm lining this guide up right here with my stitching line that's right there. I probably need to readjust the camera maybe. Let's try that. Okay. Now, when I do something like this, if I'm going to be using a walking foot to like quilt a pot holder or something like that, I'll just quilt on the edge of that corner and then pivot and then come back again and line everything up. Oop, got to go back. But you can see here, if this were a large quilt, there would be a lot of pivoting to do. So that is like a disadvantage of using the feed dogs and a walking foot or a dual feed foot. But I mean, that's as easy as it is using a walking foot, is that you put it on, you get the little fork on the screw, and then you go. So I'm going to take this off, and then I'm going to put on the number 1D foot, which has dual feed. And now I'm going to just switch to the view again. Here we are. Hello. I've got 3 dual feed here in my little toolkit, and I want to tell you the benefits of dual feed. First of all, there is a central guide dual feed foot available. That's number 10D. There's obviously a number 1 dual feed foot. Most of you that have dual feed have this foot that came with your machine. Then there is 20D, that's the open toe version of that walking foot that I showed you. Now let's really talk about the benefit of this. So the walking foot is not a coated foot, so it can only do 5.5 millimeter maximum stitch width. So if you wanted to do some decorative quilting on your quilt, you would actually lose some of the detail of the stitch. So with these dual feed feet like this, you can actually go as far as 9 millimeters wide if you have a 9 millimeter wide machine. So that would be a benefit. I'm going to put our good and trusty number 1D foot on the machine, and I'm going to switch back to our sewing view. And so when I'm putting the dual feed foot on, I don't have dual feed activated yet. I have my dual feed foot on, and then I'm going to take my hand and just wipe the back of the machine to bring the dual feed piece into place, and you can see it right there. I'm just going to turn the light down. Just a little bit. I think you'll be able to see the stitching a little bit better now. And actually, before I engage that dual feed, I should put my needle through the hole to pull that thread down under the foot. There we go. All right. So now I don't have a guide on this foot, but there are guides that you can put on your dual feed foot. They're available from Bernina. You can buy a right and a left guide, and if you want to buy the shorter ones, they're not terribly expensive, so I recommend buying the set. Then there's also a seam guide set with rulers that you can have, so if you want to do larger spaced wide cross hatching using the dual feed, you have that option. So I've got the dual feed on, and I'm getting started off the edge of my material, and I haven't changed my stitch length or needle position or anything like that. I'm just going to simply sew a diagonal line down this piece. And then I'm going to just switch. And now I'm just going to come down here, and I just want to do a loose decorative stitch of some kind. Right now I'm just trying stitch number 301. You can see how easily I can go through all of these layers with this decorative stitch that's going back and forth on top of itself. But you can still imagine that if I were doing a decorative stitch like this, or even if I go back to my straight stitch and I'm doing straight stitching, even with a stitch like this, my challenge is that I have to do a lot of pivoting. And this is fine if I'm doing a pot holder, maybe a placemat or something like that. But most of us, when we quilt, we're actually making a piece that is substantial in size. So I'm going to just remove this from the machine, and I want to talk a little bit about some alternatives to using walking feet and the dual feed feet. Hi, it's me again, over here. Woohoo! All right, so let's talk about a ruler work foot. So this is a free motion foot. So now you know what the scariest thing that we're going to do right now is actually drop our feed dogs. So I'm going to reach over here. You might hear it on the audio. There they go. I just dropped my feed dogs, and now I am using this foot. Now look at this foot and how odd it is, because it's a free motion foot, but it's really thick. And this free motion foot is actually designed to be lined up against a ruler. So you start doing this work, you've got your ruler work, and then you're going to actually push a ruler along it to get a straight line. And I'm using the Amanda Murphy ruler. They're Amanda Murphy good measure rulers. They've got the spray on the back so that it doesn't slip onto the quilting material or onto your quilt, so you can get a nice firm grip on it so your ruler doesn't wiggle around. It has great markings on it. There's 15 degrees, 22.5, all different kinds. In my world, I usually use 90, 45, and occasionally 60 and 30. But nonetheless, you have them all here. And so this little guy is what I used on this Cuckoo Clock. So the Cuckoo Clock, I actually did not use a walking foot on this. That was done all with ruler work. And when I quilted this Cuckoo Clock, I never pivoted the clock. Everything I did, the clock sat just like this, and I moved it. So I never had to wiggle or anything like that, and it was really easy. So let me show you on our piece that we're already working on how easy it is to do ruler work, straight line quilting without pivoting your piece. All right, so my feed dogs are dropped. I have my piece back on here. Here's the foot, thread's the same. I'm going to start over here now. The presser foot edge, that lip on the presser foot to the needle is about 1/4 of an inch. So when I use my ruler, I'm going to be looking at the 3/4 measurement on my ruler. And if you don't know where that is, our machines actually have a little ruler down below. And so sometimes I have to use these to make sure I'm measuring in the right spot. And so that's 1/4, and then, so this line right here that is spaced away, that's 1/4 of an inch. This is 3/4. So I'm going to line the 3/4 line up to my previous stitching line, and then that will give me an inch apart quilting distance. So I'm going to start by bringing my thread up just like I did the last time. I just want to line up to see where I'm going to get started here. And I'm going to use my tweezers. There we go. And now I'm lining this up 3/4 of an inch from the edge. And now, here we go. So I want to tell you a little story. There's no stitch regulator on this. You have to move it at a speed that you feel comfortable with, and that's the scariest part about free motion quilting. And then you have to stop with your needle down to kind of move your ruler so you can still keep a grip on it. All right, so now I've got to the edge, and I told you, I promised you I would do this without having to pivot. So now I'm going to stitch Got to get a better grip. You know what I like if I don't get a good grip on something? I like using these quilting gloves. So I'm going to put on some quilting gloves. It'll just help me give it. Now these are very light and they breathe, but the ends have rubbery, grippy grips on them. So the ends of your fingers are sticky. Oh, what a difference. All right, so now I'm going to line this ruler back up on that 3/4 line. Oops, I got to go a little bit further here. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Now, I'm actually going to be moving this backwards. I can't tell you what a difference these gloves made. And I'm just keeping that ruler straight. All right, so now just like I did going up this way, I'm going to line it going this way. Oop, went too far. You do have to like start eyeballing a little bit and you'll get used to it. So now, here we go. Be careful, don't stitch over your finger. But look, I have not, I mean, if it's more comfortable for you to put the ruler on this side to kind of travel to get to where you need to go back, you can certainly do that. So now I don't want to pivot at all. I'm going to come back around down this way because I'm now going to echo on this side. Or not echo, I'm going to start lining it up. And I'm going to go in this direction. Ooh, now I'm going to quilt sideways. Making sure everything's lined up the way I want it to be. Okay, and now I'm going to go back in this direction here. I need to go a little bit more forward. There we go. Now we'll go this direction. Now I probably would be holding it on the other side, but because we're on camera, I want you to see exactly what's happening here. But you can see this grid that's been created. And that was much easier than pivoting and turning. It might not look like it with a piece this small, but trust me, it does when you've got a lot of bulk in your lap. So that's the basics of ruler work. Now, of course, with anything else, there are other rulers that you can get that you can go and make curves. There's also rulers, these are BERNINA rulers. They don't really have all the guideline markings that the Amanda Murphy rulers do, but you know, this is kind of a multi-function one that you can use for lots of different shapes. There's also good measure Amanda Murphy rulers that have feather designs, ribbon candy designs, just everything, and you can kind of use little bits of them to do different things. And I'm going to bring this Cuckoo Clock back to show you, because if we look at the Cuckoo Clock here, you can see the clock face. That was actually used with one of the wave rulers that I just echoed again and again, kind of radiating from the clock face. I thought it kind of had a wood grain texture to it, and I thought that looked really interesting. All right, so I'm going to put this swatch to rest in the museum, of course, and I'm going to switch this out. I'm going to change feet. I'm going to turn it back around to so you can see me. All right, here we are. Wearing the gloves while I'm talking to you on camera feels a little weird, so I'm going to take them off. Can't think with the gloves on. So that foot, the ruler work foot, does work if you do have a Q20 sit-down quilting machine. You do have this capability to use it on that machine as well. One thing I didn't point out here is that there's a little brass ring on there that makes this adjustable so that you can do your free motion quilting through all different layers of material. Sometimes with a really thick quilt, you get a little bit of flagging because it's so thick. So this would allow you to either back off of the material or push down on it a little bit more. And there's 3 feet that are adjustable that Bernina have. Another version, and we're going to use this in just a minute, that's the micro stippling foot. Now, some of you that have been doing quilting with Bernina feet for a while might say, well, that looks just like the number 24 foot, which is actually the original open toe quilting foot or open toe embroidery foot. But this is actually opened up more, and it's an aluminum color and it's not shiny. So when those very bright fluorescent lights are shining down on you when you're trying to quilt, there's less glare. So it makes it easier to kind of use this foot for a long period of time, especially if you're doing the free motion work. You can't use this one with the ruler work though, because of the thinness of the bottom. You can see the difference there. But you have a lot more visibility on this, and I love this foot for doing micro stippling. The other adjustable foot is brand new. This is the adjustable cup clip foot, and honestly, this one I have used for very impractical purposes. We do have the Quilter's Dream Puff batting here, which it's pretty nice to be able to use this cup. As you can see, what you're getting is a lot of pressure down on puff, anything with pile, and then you're able to kind of adjust the height of it so that it can glide around whatever you're trying to free motion quilt or whatever you're trying to sew together. And I say sew together because my little buddy back here behind me, the little penguin, this is, first of all, I wish that you could reach into your computer screens and rub this little guy's belly. It is so soft, and it's now approaching my witching hour, which is about 7:30 when I get really sleepy. But anyway, this little guy is made from Shannon Fabrics Cuddle fabric, and it's super soft, super luxurious. I think this is the Luxe Cuddle. Nonetheless, I had been trying to figure out the best way to make this little penguin because I tried a different machine and so forth, and honestly I sewed everything together on that penguin with a foot like this, free motion, slowly just going around the little guy, and it was so much faster, so much easier. The hardest part about sewing with fur is the aftermath of vacuuming up all the fur. But anyway, this isn't a class on making a penguin. This is a class on using the different quilting feet. So we're going to visit this guy in just a moment. Finally, for your free motion quilting experiences, there's also this. This is the BERNINA Stitch Regulator foot. The BERNINA Stitch Regulator foot works like a mouse. Our little mouse, it's got like the little red light in it, and when we move a mouse across a computer screen, the little pointy white clicker thing goes across the screen as fast as you move it and tracks it. Well, this BERNINA Stitch Regulator has a little red lighty thing that goes across the material and can read things on the material, and then instead of moving a cursor across the screen, it's regulating the speed of the machine's motor. So when you are using your foot control with this little foot, you're actually just using the foot control as an on and off button. You're holding it on and it's doing its thing, and you can stop and the machine stops. You start sewing and then the machine starts going, and every variation in between. And you can even set how long you want the stitches to be set, just like with a straight stitch. You can say, I want it to be 2 millimeters long, or I want it to be 3 millimeters long. And just like the walking foot, the BERNINA Stitch Regulator foot comes with 3 different soles. We have the open toe sole on it right now. This is the closed toe sole. And then this is the kind of cup clip sole that can be available on the Stitch Regulator. Now, drat, the Stitch Regulator is not really suitable for doing ruler work, and it also is something that this is to help you take the urgency out of your free motion quilting. And I think that it makes you not hold your breath while you're doing quilting, because free motion can be a little bit of something that gets a lot of people anxious about starting. So what I'm going to do first is, those were the adjustable feet, and that was the Stitch Regulator. Don't forget, there's also feet like this. This is the old-fashioned free motion quilting foot that does not have any stitch regulation or anything like that. If you are somebody that likes to put the pedal to the metal, devil may care attitude, this might be your foot. But we're going to start off with the Stitch Regulator. And so we're going to go back to the sewing view. Okay, so I'm going to put the Stitch Regulator foot on. The little cone fits into the reservoir, and then there is this headphone jack that fits on the back of the machine. There's like a headphone receptacle. And I have to tell you, it's a little difficult trying to do it without knocking the camera over. But there, I just got it. So now when you plug this machine in, when you plug the BERNINA Stitch Regulator into the machine, it's going to give you a whole new screen. And you only have the choice of 2 stitches, straight stitch and zigzag. And then you also have the choice between mode 1 and mode 2. So I'm putting my gloves back on. And then I'm going to grab a new piece of material, a new quilt sandwich. And then I am going to just do a little doodling so I can show you the difference between BERNINA Stitch Regulator Mode 1 and Mode 2. I'm going to bring my thread up from the bottom. I'm going to use my little tweezers so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Okay, now in mode 1, when I firmly press my foot down, see how it's kind of stitching in place? That's because it's tacking it to get started. And I'm moving around in my little wormy shape. Now this, for the kind of distance that I'm doing this stippling, I think my stitches are a little close together. So I'm actually going to use my stitch length knob, and I'm going to elongate my stitches to 3.0 millimeters. Okay, so now let's give this a go again. And now you can see that the machine doesn't seem like it's going nearly as fast. You can see that red light. That red light is just like our mouse light, regulating how I am moving the material through the machine. So I want to do something really quick for you. I'm going to move this really fast, and I want you to hear what happens. Well, it would have helped if I didn't turn the siren off. Okay. Okay, see how the machine is beeping? That red is beeping at me here. That means that I'm moving it a little too fast for what the machine can keep up with. I don't think you can see it on the video. Let me just move it up a little bit. There we go. All right. See how my light's green? It's saying ready to go, no problem. But now, I'm going to start sewing. See how it's flashing? It's saying, slow down, Gayle. I can't keep up with your expert quilting hands. Okay, now, see how I stopped moving my hands and the needle's rhythmically going up and down? I am actually going to change to mode 2 because mode 2 is what I would use most often when I'm doing a background fill like stippling. So now, lights on, but nothing's happening until I move the material through the machine. Oh, I made a leak. Oh, I made another. Now I stop. Now, that's fine and dandy, but if I were doing a motif where I wanted to start and stop and not have to bury my threads under the quilt and things like that, I could go back to mode 1. And now I would knot my stitch. And now let's say I'm going to do my little heart. And now when I get back to where I started, I want to kind of knot it, and now I'm done. I hit my thread cutter, and now I've made my heart, or more like my little leaf, or whatever the case is. But the idea is that's how I ended my stitch, and I just have a little tail there that I can cut with my little snippy scissors. And now when you're quilting, and you do want to follow a motif, there's a lot of different ways to do that. You can trace with a light box. You can trace on aqua mesh stabilizer and then quilt and then wash it, and all of your tracing marks will go away with the stabilizer, with the wash away stabilizer. A lot of people will find inspiration in the blocks and do different type of work, but that really is something where you can just experiment. And honestly, some people are better at just doodling with the needle, and others need like a line to follow. I'm going to switch back to web view, but then I'm going to grab something that I want to show you, because this is a technique that I love to play around with. All right, give me 1 second. Come on, penguin. All right, here is Florence the Flamingo. This is an Elizabeth Hartman pattern. And Florence the Flamingo, the background is this gray, and it just needed something to make it exciting. So I started making or quilting this specific design that would have taken me forever to actually mark onto the material. Okay? So what I did is I turned the quilt upside down, and I quilted it from this side and used the pattern in this fabric to actually be my all over quilting design. And it's a great way to practice doing any kind of motif. This fabric is a little busier than what I would really like to start off with, but it's what I had at home. I didn't have a store at the time with a bunch of fabric to choose from. And so I had started this and I committed to it. But I think I might have some time to finish this one up in the next couple of weeks. So that is another way that you can take this to a whole new level. But I'm going to put this aside, and I'm going to just do a block that I started. And I know you out there, the sassy sewist, and you're going to make fun of this because this is the block with the funky colors. And I'm going to use this block until it just disintegrates, I swear. So this is my little variable star block from a patchwork patterns class that we did. But I'm just going to take this as an opportunity to just do a little kind of semicircular design around this piece to kind of show you how you can use a block to kind of give you inspiration for how you're going to quilt a design. So let's go back to the sewing view. I'm putting on the gloves. And another thing is I like to kind of bury my thread in the corner of something. It seems to, not be as noticeable that way. So I'm going to put the needle down, bring the needle up. Now I'm in BSR mode 1. which means that when I start sewing, the needle is rhythmically gonna go up and down. Now, I'm sorry, but my little hand is gonna hide this for just a minute as I get started. Okay, so now my goal is to quilt a little semicircle to the corner, a little semicircle here, and I'm going to go around and I'm going to do something else around the square. Now, I know that some of you at home that might have actually know a little bit about ruler work. If I didn't want to use the stitch regulator, I could have used a ruler work and some kind of semicircular piece to actually do something similar on this. Oops, hang on, I dropped a thing. Or a subtle curve like this to line it up on the material and line that ruler work around the edge. But you know, that's okay, because some of us, if you're really beginning, you need that cushion of the capabilities of the BERNINA Stitch Regulator. All right, so here I go. So I just made curve 1 from one corner to the next, and I'm going to go to about that same degree to this corner over here. Okay, now I'm going to do the same here, and I'm going to try my very gosh darn hardest not to pivot. But I'm good at making these corners sometimes in a different way. So. All right, so I've gone around, and now I'm going to do that same technique to go around the raccoon block. Just doing my little gentle curve. Ta-da! And now I give you a fancy raccoon. Now, look at that quilting inside that raccoon. That's even fancier. That looks so perfect. It's hard to see it from there, but I can turn it around for you here. Look at that. You know why that's so perfect? Because that was an embroidery design. So this was hooped up in an embroidery machine, and the motif was quilted in that. All right, so we're almost done. I just have a couple more things that I want to show you, but I wanted to take a minute to kind of show you the raccoon so you could see it better outside of the machine. So we did that little thing, and you can see how it adds dimension to our points and everything. So the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to use that micro stippling foot, and I'm going to do micro stippling in the background piece, this black and white area. So this is going to look fantastic with this gray thread. Gloves are going back on. All right, so The minute I remove the stitch regulator and unplug it from the back of the machine, that screen changes. And now you hear the Bernina burp, and then we get back into just a regular free motion, non-stitch regulated mode. So I'm going to trim this off, put that away. Of course, it'll stick to these gloves. All right, so now I'm going to start stitching in the outside of this, because the idea with stippling is that you start in one spot, you go around, and then you end at the spot that you started in. And typically stippling is going to be the wiggles. So I think I'm making little worms. So here we go. I do want to adjust my stitch length to be a little closer together for this, because micro stippling, think of it like this. Think of how different points of a Sharpie draw differently. You wouldn't want to do really detailed, tiny sketch with a fat Sharpie marker. So we're going to do really tiny quilting. So we want to use a shorter stitch. Here it goes. Whoa, that was real fast. Oh, and I just realized it's late. Remember, my witching hour is at 7:30. That if you were going to use the Bernina Stitch Regulator, you would want to adjust your stitch length to a little length. But I took the stitch regulator off, so really the tiny stitches is just up to me by how fast or slow I press the foot control. I hope that didn't confuse anyone. But here's the deal. For sake of time, I'm just going to do this one little corner and show it to you. But you know, this could be one of those like videos that people watch to de-stress and fall asleep to. Oh, yeah. Okay, we're here. We're doing a video. All right. So there's our little tiny stippling. And see, the goal of stippling too is, like I said, you make little worms and you don't want to cross over a previous worm. So you want to get from point A to point B with the wiggles and no loop-de-loops or anything. So it takes a little practice. I've been doing this a while, so I really enjoy it and I really like to do it. And as you can see, it totally relaxed me because I almost fell asleep. All right, so now eventually the sewy sassist, the sewy sassist, the sassy sewist, this is going to be finished and I'm going to mail it to you and sign it. Okay, now I have one more thing to show you. And I think I've lost a sample somewhere. But the world will go, oh, I see it, it's over here. Excuse me. You might want to make a quilt that has puffy, puffy, puff, puff on it. And just like I was mentioning earlier, is there's actually a foot designed for the puffy puff or materials with pile and things like that, and it's this adjustable cup clip foot. So I'm going to put this on the machine and then go around our banana, and I am going to sing a little song because we sing it all the time here because we have this backing. This is a Tula backing that went with her monkey wrench collection, and we always are like bananas and pajamas, and we like make these bananas and pajamas do everything. Bananas and pajamas are quilting at the fair. You fill in the blank. You're welcome for putting that in your head. All right, so I'm changing the micro stippling foot to the adjustable cup clip foot. And I'm going to put some gloves on again. All right, so I like when I go around a design, oh my, here it is. There's the thread. When I go around a design, for whatever reason, I like to start in a dip. And there's a dip right here in this banana. I'm going to put my heel part of my foot down, bring it up again, use my tweezers to grab my thread. There it is. I see it. It doesn't like to come through all that puff. All right, so I'm going to go around the banana. Slowly at first, tack my stitches into place a little bit. And you know, in this world, there are clockwise people and there are counterclockwise people. Most people will go clockwise, not me. I prefer to go counterclockwise. Now this is actually puffy batting, and puffy batting should be sewn together with a longer stitch. So I'm going to try to control my speed of my foot control. It's hard because I really like to go fast. Now I have to stop so I can reposition my hands. Now I'm stopping at that point. Now I'm going to come around again. Oh, I went a little too fast. Got to slow it down again, Gayle. I probably need to do not just the banana, but the banana peelings and some of the details. But just for now. So now I'm going to come around again, go in the inside of the banana. Now it's okay to go back a little bit and come down. Yeah, I'm doing it. Here we go. And now I'm just taking the seaweed root around that banana peel, and then I'm gonna come up here to the banana, down, do the peeling, do my little stitch in place, and cut. And now I have stitched around a banana with the puffy batting. I think I have to turn it around easily for you to see. So there's our puffy banana. There's the other side. Nice little puffy banana. So I can't think of a better way to end this video than with banana fabric and puffy batting. So I would like to thank all of you that tuned in this evening. It was really fun showing you all of these different Bernina feet. And I will be posting this video to our YouTube channel. It'll be available on Twitch for a couple of weeks as well, but we'll get it up on YouTube. And when you visit YouTube, don't forget to search for BERNINA of Naperville and like us, comment, and subscribe. And then, if that's not enough, if you click the bell, you'll get alerts when we post new videos. So join us, and thank you so much, and stay safe.